It's a commonly accepted fact that Super Metroid is not only one of the best games on Super Nintendo, but one of the best games ever made, period. And today, I wanted to take a look at why. This is the top 10 moments in Super Metroid. Number 10, the Secret Dragon Kill. Dragon is the third boss of the 4 statue bosses that you need to hunt down and destroy in order to clear Super Metroid. It is the boss of Meridia, quite difficult to tackle legitimately, but as it so happens, if you're a pro gamer like me who reads strategy guides on the internet, you will come across a really cool tidbit. There is an alternate way to killing Dragon. All you need to do is fire missiles at the turrets on the walls, let Dragon grab you, and then use the grapple beam to latch on and electrocute him. This is amazing. Like, this is a completely unnecessary, kind of pointless, but boy, is it awesome. This is a great way for speedrunners to progress through the game faster, or for just less skilled players to kill a boss easier. And it's a lot of fun and really speaks volumes about how versatile and in-depth this game actually is, because this is really, really cool to watch happen and really, really cool to do. Number 9, Empty Zebus. Planet Zebus is completely empty when you first touch down on the planet after having the Metroid cruelly ripped from your fingers. Descending on the planet and beginning to look around the starter area, trying to figure out where to go, going through these empty halls, going down, and coming across things like the final boss room from the original game, and eventually where you ended up, where you were at the beginning of the first game. Really, really phenomenal, very, very impressive. Lots of great callbacks to the original game, and it really does a lot to build up the mood and set the atmosphere really, really early on. And when you come back up, when there are enemies everywhere, it's genuinely exciting and thrilling. The music picks back up. Enemies are everywhere. They're crawling all over the walls, and you have to climb back up to where you were. That was the thing that was... There were no obstacles when you went down there, but when you come back up, they're everywhere. This is typical Metroid game design. Prime 3 does this quite a bit, as I recall, but it all started here in Super. Number 8, the Crocomire Kill. Crocomire is a boss around the middle point of the game. It's the boss that you need to beat the grappling beam. It has its own area. It's kind of unique in that it just kind of stands there and doesn't really do a whole lot. It's not that impressive or intimidating of a boss. It's not all that difficult. However, what you have to do to beat it is knock it backward with everything you have until it finally falls through the floor behind itself and sinks into the lava. And you see its skin beginning to melt away. This thing dies in the most brutal way possible. Arguably the most brutal way in this already brutal Super Nintendo game. But you can sort of see... If you look closely, you can see a few bubbles slowly move to the left of the screen. And when you go down that way, when you go down to the wall that you previously couldn't have passed, its skeleton bursts through, destroys the wall, collapses, and you can proceed with the game. Unbelievable. Like, when I saw this for the first time, I legitimately thought I would have to fight the skeleton, and as it turns out, that wasn't the case. That wasn't necessary, but the fact that the game does such a great job of building expectations, keeping you hyped, and keeping you interested in what's going on. Even a little thing like this, even like a relatively minor boss, manages to leave quite a bit of an impression. Number 7, Brinstar. Brinstar is the point, I think, when the game stops being linear, in which it kind of railroads you into getting specific power-ups and going down a certain path, and opens up quite a bit. You have a bunch of paths you can go down, you have a bunch of directions you can take, you have a bunch of power-ups you can tackle, there are a bunch of directions you can go in. It's when it becomes a bit more open and you can explore a little bit more. In part because of having the morph ball and bombs, but by nature of the level, the way the level is designed, there are a lot of cool things in this area, from the Edacoons in the underground to like the bright pink area to the boss right before the super missile, to the secret exit that leads straight back to where you got the morph ball. There's all this really, really cool shit there. There's all this really cool stuff hidden there, and lots of great puzzle solving that you wouldn't be able to uncover your first way through, or even your second. You need like a lot of endgame items, I think, to get some of the items here. To get some of the items that are kind of out of the way here. It's a great place to come back to when you have more equipment, but it's not necessary. It kind of emphasizes, I think, kind of the level of skill it takes in Super Metroid to progress past certain areas. There's a lot of flexibility in the level design, and a lot of it begins to take shape in this area, and I love it to bits. The music is spectacular, and this is just another great area in a great game. Number 6, Kraid. Okay, let's be real here. Like, no boss in Super Metroid intimidated you more than Kraid for the first time. Possibly one of the biggest bosses on Super Nintendo. Kraid is big to begin with when you first see him. When he first rises up out of the thorns and towers above you. He's about like 10, 20 times the size of Samus, right? This guy is positively huge, and as you fight him, as you encounter him, you begin to do damage, you begin to shoot missiles into his mouth, you begin to understand his patterns, and then you enter Phase 2, in which he stands up and becomes even taller. And then you have to dodge alongside platforms, jump on his claws, and continue pelleting him with your weapons. Insane boss fight. It's quite simple compared to a lot of the later boss fights. It's very, very easy. Really good players can get him with, I believe, 2 or 3 super missiles. He's not a complex boss, but the sheer intimidation, the sheer image of him just rising out of the thorns, that is something that's absolutely implanted onto my memory from when I first encountered him. And beating him and getting the Varia suit and knowing that you can now go further into Norfair, that was very rewarding. This is absolutely one of my favorite moments from the game. Number 5, Ridley. I almost put Ceres Station in here as its own entry, but as it turns out, the main thing that makes Ceres Station work so well is the encounter with Ridley. You travel through the station, you go past all this carnage and dead bodies and flashing lights. You're looking for something. You're trying to figure out what could possibly have happened here, and you eventually come across it. Ridley, the giant space dragon, and you fight it. You have to lose. He eventually flees, taking the Metroid with him, and you have to pursue Ridley onto the planet. That is the entire plot of Super Metroid. You are descending onto Zebus in order to recover the Super Metroid that was taken from the station by this creature. This creature, for all you know, is the main final boss. And as you go through the game, as you explore more and more, as you explore every nook and cranny of Zebus, you begin to uncover more and more indications that there might be a little bit more things to overcome in this giant maze. But you never really forget Ridley, and when you descend into his lair in Norfair, when you get past those guards, when you fight him, when you crush him, it's incredibly satisfying. You have essentially reached the end of a character arc in which you overcame the enemy that fucked you over to begin with, that stole the baby Metroid from you. As a result, like, overcoming Ridley is one of the most one of the most important moments of the game, and that cannot be ignored. Number 4, Speed Booster. Metroid is known for having great power-ups, but I believe the Speed Booster from Super Metroid to be one of the most versatile and useful in the entire franchise. This is a power-up that essentially makes Samus go at supersonic speed. She goes far faster than Sonic the Hedgehog could ever hope to. She can run through walls, she can shoot through the air, she can do all this crazy stuff that never ever stops being cool or entertaining. In fact, I kind of wish there were more areas in the game where you could just use it to like great effect. Like every time I play the game, like my favorite moments are, outrunning the lava, jumping through the air to get to the grapple beam, like getting past, like shooting upward with the Shine Spark in that room with the Edakora. Like this, the Datora, like this is one of the most entertaining to use power-ups I think I've seen in any game ever, and that needs to be given credit. This thing is incredibly entertaining, unforgettable, and honestly probably not only a game-defining power-up, but a genre-defining one. This game is cooler because the Speed Booster exists. Number 3, the Climax. How could I ever talk about Super Metroid without mentioning its poignant and iconic ending? This is absolutely one of the best game endings I've ever experienced. I have no idea how many times I've played this, okay? And how even today it thrills and excites me. Like, I've played this game probably several dozen times. I don't want to say hundreds, but several dozen. And every single time I get to the end, every single time I clear through, go through Torian, get to the end, see the Super Metroid for the first time, have it attack you, and then recognize you, and then help you against the final boss, which is legitimately fun to fight, and then gaining the Hyper Beam, and then escaping a detonating planet. Unbelievably cool. Unbelievably exciting. Like thrill after thrill after thrill, emotion, high, like, and it blends seamlessly into the gameplay. Like, I noticed in this playthrough that the Mother Brain fight is not just an empty brain dead cutscene battle. Like, you do indeed have to you can indeed lose to it if you're being careless. And playing this game as much as I have, for the longest time I thought Mother Brain was kind of simplistic, but no, it's a great fight, not just for the emotion, but for the gameplay. The game perfectly balances great game design with great storytelling, and the Climax is the perfect example of that. Number 2, the intro. What could possibly be better than the ending to Super Metroid? How about the beginning? As much as I love the ending to the game, it really needs to be said, every single time, right, I turn the game on, ever, in my life, I've seen the beginning. Like, there was a time in which I couldn't beat Super Metroid. There was a time in which I couldn't get to the end. There are times where I don't play through the entire game for whatever reason. But every single time I play through the game, I encounter the intro. Every single time I see Samus standing there, staring at you, narrating to you what's happened to her, like what her life is like, what the previous 2 games are like, the plot of the game so far, talking about who she is, in everything about this, from the music to the animation to the visuals, recreating scenes from the first 2 games in the new engine, like everything about it, it makes you care. Like, more than anything else, even before I could read, I think I was blown away by how well this thing was presented, how well it sort of comes together with its beautiful music, its presentation, Samus's character, presenting the world of Metroid, giving a hint as to like who Samus is. You sort of see the woman behind the visor. Actually, now that I think about it, that probably should have been on the list when you get a game over for the first time. But you see Samus for the first time, right? You understand her, and you care about the character before the game even begins. And from then onward, it's pure action. But the intro is just pure gorgeous storytelling. It makes you. It's probably the best example of video game storytelling I've ever seen in my life, and that needs to be acknowledged. The intro to Super Metroid is positively beautiful. Number 1, the entire game. Super Metroid is, from start to finish, one of the best games ever made. It has no real problems. It has no real flaws. It is endlessly replayable. It still looks gorgeous, even 25 years later. The soundtrack is one of the best ever. It has one of the best stories in gaming. The mechanics are in-depth. Like, there's all these things you can do. Like, all these different ways you can play the game. Proceed through the areas. Proceed through the game. Fight these bosses. Experience this masterpiece, and as a result of this, I can't stress this enough. I cannot stress this enough. There is never a time when you're playing Super Metroid where you're bored or want it to end. Like, no matter how many times I've played this game, no matter how many times I've turned it on, no matter how many times I've beaten Mother Brain, freed the aliens at the end, see Samus die, or go through all of this, all of it comes together to create this majestic thing that honestly I don't think will ever be topped. This game is 25 years old. No game has even really come close to touching this. Like, no game has ever made me feel the way that Super Metroid does. It is truly a masterpiece, not only of its genre or its developer, but of the medium as a whole. Like, I have a hard time thinking of any game that has ever been able to surpass Super Metroid in any way. This game is spectacular. It stands heads and shoulders above the rest of the industry, and will do so for years to come. And it's really interesting. I realized while I was making this list that I completely neglected to mention a very key fact of Super Metroid. It's kind of interesting. A very fond memory I have of Samus dying for the first time. I remember playing the game, popping it in when I was too young to play it, getting stuck in an area that I had no business being in, and dealing with an enemy that I didn't know how to deal with, and of course I died. And I remember seeing Samus's death animation for the first time, and being blown away by just how dark it was. Like, Samus really does just explode into a bikini, basically. And it's really shocking because as a casual player, you don't necessarily know, like I didn't know, that Samus was a woman, and seeing that for the first time when I was very young, it was a very like memorable moment, iconic moment actually. I probably should make another video about this, but moments like that make Super Metroid the best game ever. You cannot simply condense the entire game onto a top 10 list, and as a result, there's no other way to say it. The best thing you can do to honor Super Metroid is to go out and play it. This truly is one of the best games ever made. Hey everyone, Cody Lee here. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you consider subscribing and following the rest of my content, and checking out my books at blackcatbooks.org. I am working on projects that are probably very influenced by Metroid. Right now I'm working on a project called Grimm, which is kind of a dark fantasy. So please look forward to that, and I will see you all next time.